Jonathan Swift's The Battle of the Books, 1704, is a satirical allegory that explores the intellectual debate between the proponents of ancient classical literature and those advocating for modern literature. This debate, commonly known as the Quarrel of the Ancients and the Moderns, was a significant controversy in late 17th and early 18th century European literary circles. Swift's work, written in a mock-heroic style, humorously dramatizes this conflict as a literal battle in the king's library, where books representing both sides engage in combat. The context of the literary debate. Swift's The Battle of the Books was published as a response to the ongoing debate between defenders of classical literature, the ancients, and supporters of contemporary scholarship and literary progress, the moderns. The dispute was particularly intense in England and France, with figures like Sir William Temple, an advocate for the ancients and Swift's patron, arguing that classical writers such as Homer and Virgil possessed an unmatched literary and intellectual superiority over their modern counterparts. In contrast, proponents of the moderns, including figures associated with the Royal Society, claimed that contemporary advancements in science, philosophy, and literature had surpassed those of the classical world. The allegory of the battle. The central narrative of the Battle of the Books unfolds in a royal library, where books representing both camps come to life and engage in a mock-epic battle. The books of the ancients, including Aristotle, Homer, and Plato, clash with the books of the moderns, such as Descartes, Hobbes, and contemporary critics. The battle is narrated in a grand, exaggerated style that parodies the conventions of epic poetry, drawing upon influences from Homer's Iliad and Virgil's Aeneid. The role of Aesop in the spider versus the bee allegory. Aesop, a wise observer in the story, introduces an additional allegory: the battle between the spider and the bee. The spider represents the moderns, who construct their elaborate but ultimately fragile theories from their own minds, like a spider spinning its web from itself. The bee, on the other hand, represents the ancients, who gather nectar from nature and produce something valuable, honey. This allegory underscores Swift's preference for the ancients, suggesting that true knowledge should be based on existing wisdom rather than self-contained, artificial constructs. The outcome of the battle. The battle itself remains unresolved. Just as victory seems imminent for the ancients, the narrator abruptly concludes the account, leaving the ultimate winner ambiguous. This deliberate lack of resolution reflects Swift's satirical approach, poking fun at the futility of the argument while subtly affirming the enduring value of the ancients. Analysis of the Battle of the Books. Satirical techniques. Swift employs a variety of satirical devices in the Battle of the Books. Mock-epic style. The use of grandiose language and epic conventions to describe a literary dispute elevates the triviality of the argument to a level of exaggerated seriousness, making the conflict seem absurd. Allegory and parody. The battle between books serves as an extended metaphor for the real-world literary debate, while the bee and spider analogy reinforces Swift's preference for the ancients. Irony. Swift often adopts the voice of an impartial narrator, though his humor and exaggeration reveal his true stance in favor of the ancients. Swift's defense of the ancients. While Swift's satire mocks both sides of the debate to some extent, his work ultimately aligns with the ancients. He suggests that modern thinkers, like the spider, are too self-referential and disconnected from foundational knowledge. The bee, representing the ancients, gathers wisdom from nature and history, refining it into something enduring and beneficial. By framing the ancients as sources of lasting intellectual nourishment, Swift subtly reinforces their superiority. Critique of intellectual hubris. Swift's broader critique extends beyond the immediate literary quarrel. He satirizes the arrogance of certain scholars, particularly those who prioritize novelty over substance. The moderns, depicted as aggressive and self-assured, represent a faction of intellectuals who reject classical wisdom in favor of their own theories. Through their exaggerated portrayal, Swift warns against the dangers of intellectual hubris and the neglect of historical knowledge. The influence of classical literature. Swift's writing itself reflects his admiration for classical literature. His mock-epic style, allusions to Homer and Virgil, and use of allegory all demonstrate a deep engagement with classical traditions. By mimicking the very structures he praises, Swift underscores the effectiveness and timeless appeal of ancient literary techniques. The unresolved ending, a commentary on intellectual conflicts. The abrupt conclusion of the battle suggests that debates over literary and intellectual superiority are ultimately inconclusive. Swift's decision not to declare a winner implies that such arguments are perpetual and that both sides will continue to vie for dominance. This ambiguity adds another layer of satire, highlighting the cyclical nature of intellectual disputes and the difficulty of definitively proving literary merit. Legacy and relevance. 1. Influence on later literary criticism. Swift's The Battle of the Books remains a foundational work in literary satire. It paved the way for later discussions about literary value, originality, and tradition. The debate between the ancients and the moderns continues to inform literary criticism, as modern scholars still grapple with the balance between innovation and historical reverence. 2. Application to contemporary debates. The themes explored in The Battle of the Books remain relevant today, especially in discussions about the role of classical education versus contemporary learning. The tension between preserving traditional knowledge and embracing new intellectual developments mirrors modern debates in academia, politics, and technology. 3. Swift's lasting impact. Swift's ability to use humor and allegory to address serious intellectual questions ensures the enduring appeal of The Battle of the Books. His work continues to be studied not only as a satire but also as a sophisticated critique of human intellectual vanity and the perpetual struggle between past and present knowledge.